next I have the secret to effective employee onboarding. This is presented by SynchronyHR. I have Keitht, TIRICO, and Rebecca King with me for this session. Keitht and Rebecca, hey there.
Hey, Jess.
Cool.
How's it going?
Good. How are y'all doing?
Great. Well, thanks for having us. I mean, amazing job today. I mean, when you look at it, you heard it up, 65 different speakers. We're here at the end of the day right now. Amazing. Everyone is still hanging in there, right?
Yes, it is. And then we've got a happy hour that we're going to do later that I threw on my team yesterday. So I'm sure they love me today. I need to send them all a huge bottle of whatever they drink, right?
Yeah. Well, I wish we could join you on that happy hour. So we'll try to be as exciting as possible as we lead into that happy hour. Okay?
Well, it's going to be a Zoom one. So we're going to post the link at the closing session. If you have time between the hour of 6 and 7 tonight, we're going to keep networking open for anyone that wants to come network with us and share a beverage with us across screens since we're not in person. So awesome. I'm glad to have you guys today because listen, with the COVID pandemic, and I know we're still talking about the COVID pandemic, and I even hate talking about it, but listen, it's a reality that business owners have to face. People have had a hard time hiring, finding good hires, acquiring new hires, retaining new hires, et cetera. So we want to just talk about one piece of this process. And then I know your company, SynchronyHR, is a professional employment organization that does human resources outsourcing, workers' comp, all kinds of stuff throughout the human resources spectrum. So I want you to touch on that for the audience so that they can learn how they can use you guys as a resource in the future and maybe do business with you and get this task of, listen, I commend you guys. I'm sorry. I think anyone in insurance and human resources are a special breed, but you guys probably think that way of us people that are marketing people. So it's balance, right? But without further ado, I'm going to let you guys introduce yourself, talk about SynchronyHR, the company as a whole, and what you do respectively for Synchrony.
Okay, super. So I'm Keitht, TIRICO. I'm a business development manager at SynchronyHR. I have over 10 years of experience in HR outsourcing. I have with me my better half today, which is Rebecca King, who I asked to join me today. I was thankful that she could. She's a benefits manager for SynchronyHR, and she has over 20 plus years of experience in that field. I think pretty much every credential, if I'm not mistaken, Rebecca, you have that, including Girl Scouts. So you're a perfect person to have here. I don't want to steal your thunder, but that pretty much covers the gamut of what you are and what you do. Right?
Yeah, I've done in-house HR. I've done consulting on the HR side. I've specialized in benefits, working at carriers. So I've done a lot, seen it from a lot of different angles, worked with a lot of types of businesses in a lot of different types of situations. So whether it's, smaller business that's growing, smaller business that's going to stay small and needs to still be strategic about it. I've seen it all and helped them all.
Yeah, you have. Jess, we had a little technical difficulty on the slide, so I think the controls are with you guys. Can you go to the next slide?
My apologies. So sorry about that. Yes.
Okay, no worries. Okay. So this is a really great slide. I'll start talking to it as you kind of bring it up, just for time's sake, right? And obviously it's not about electronic onboarding or digital onboarding or whatever you want to call that. This is more just about our company and our organization. I wanted to touch on before we get into it. SynchronyHR, we are a complete back office solution for small to mid-sized businesses. As you see, there are 5 major pillars that we work with. We have payroll. It all starts there with the HR compliance. We have employee benefits, which Rebecca leads our team with, risk management, and then we tie that all in with technology. And if you look at the technology, it's kind of hard to see those little bullets there, but there's things like that make up that entire thing, because like I said, we do a lot of stuff. So you have time, labor management, applicant tracking, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the electronic onboarding. But again, this is a great slide showing all of what we do. And if you think about it, and I've been kind of chiming in and out, Jess, today, and the whole theme in the self-storage industry and where it's heading and what I'm seeing is pretty much technology. I mean, auto pay, keyless entry, better organization of data to be able to make better decisions. And I think a lot of that, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, has been keyed off probably because of, COVID. I mean, if you go back So when that happened, folks were pretty content being where they were at without having to be forced into the technology, right? So you stay into that Stone Age. And with COVID, people were forced to do all these different types of things. So today we're going to definitely hit on and touch on, I should say, onto the electronic onboarding side of it, and kind of key off on that automation, because that's a key thing for us. Automation. Rebecca, I don't know if you want to add anything before I leave this slide, because I know there's a lot here, including the employee benefits, before we get into that.
No, I mean, I think you've hit on it with the automation of things. I think the instant back office concept is very valuable when we're working with small businesses, and then just the legitimacy that it brings, right? The feeling like and looking like and acting like a legitimate business. It's automatic when you've got these automated systems.
Yeah, I agree. If we can move to the next slide, that'd be great. Would you benefit from onboarding technology? So, we kicked the can around this a little bit. We weren't sure if we should, put out bullets, or, if we should put out, different screenshots. So we decided to just kind of go with some questions that kind of identify, can you benefit from this? And obviously, we believe that this is the way of the future. If not now, if you're not doing it now, you will be doing it at some point. So here's some questions that we kind of put out there to kind of put back at the audience that hopefully can invoke some thought, and maybe we'll get some stuff back. And that is, first key thing. I mean, is your organization growing, right? And along with that growth, do you have multiple locations? And more importantly, are those multiple locations, going to be in different states? And we're seeing a lot of that in the self-storage industry, where, you start out kind of small and then you expand, whether it's through acquisition, into different states. And you go from that paper onboarding where you're writing things down, which can cause mistakes, to, trying to go into these different states and not having the proper documentation and then storing it the right way. So, if you want to reduce employment liability, if you want to make sure that you're correcting your data and storing it correctly, and just improving first impressions in general. These are all things that the electronic onboarding, or we've been able to do for our clients to help them, have that better first impression, and also stay more compliant based on the states that they're in. Do you want to add anything to this, Rebecca, or do you want to move into?
No, I think that's a good and valid list that really will tell you if any of these items apply, it's worth looking at.
Yeah, I agree. And, the liability protection, so you have documents are always accurate and so on. Can we go to the next slide, please? Record keeping. And this is really, at the end of the day, what it's all about. So as a company, you want to make sure that the records that you're getting are accurate and compliant. And the great thing about the onboarding process electronically is we can key all this stuff in and make sure, based on state and wherever it is, and also on culture, that the proper documentation is in there. Obviously, you have your I-9s, you have your W-4s, but there could be things like acknowledgement of the handbook that we help our clients write. Maybe there's some non-compete or non-disclosure agreements. Possibly there's some drug testing or alcohol consent agreements that you guys want put in there. These are all things that we can pre-populate in there, and it runs through a smooth process. So it's not a human element in there in the sense of like that you can just skip that or get back to that. To move forward, you have to do that. You have to check that box off, so you know that you have all the information that you wanted to have, and it's all stored there. The paper for each state is automatically correct, so based on where you are, pretty much dummy proof. There's a lot to talk about on this slide. So, Rebecca, I'm going to let you speak to a little bit. I know that the I-9 is something that you've done a lot with, and I think it'd be good to kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's an appropriate time to put up the survey question, but it's a good illustrative point of showing there's a whole lot of time that if you want to do your business well and be able to sleep at night knowing that, if an audit comes, you're going to be okay, then you have to recognize there's a certain level of complexity that goes into this, and none of it is profit generating, none of it. So automating it makes it a lot better for you. So how long must you retain an I-9 form, right? That's the survey that's out there. Feel free to answer it, and understand that every employer down to one employee has to comply with this. And even this one regulation is very complex. There are actually 2 agencies that audit for this. So you have twice as much likelihood to have an audit at some point of your I-9s. The DOL does it through desk audits, meaning they actually write you a letter and say, I'm auditing you, send me your audits. And then ICE audits as well. And they come on site and they carry guns. So that's a whole different experience. We've done a few of those. And so hopefully you don't experience one of those. But the question becomes how long must you retain those I-9 audits or I-9 forms? Someone has said always. Okay, so first I want to say thank you for your bravery for saying that. And then I want to say, please do not keep your I-9s always. You will be fined for your I-9s even if you're past the retention period. So if you retain an I-9 past the point when you needed to, and that is audited, you're going to have a fine on that I-9. So we want to make sure that we actually only retain our I-9s for the period of time we are required to have them, and we want to make sure that we do have them for that period of time. So you want to keep them for 1 year post-termination, but a minimum of 3 years, because of course it has to be complex. So if you hire someone, you have them there for a year, you're going to keep it another 2 years. You hire someone, you have them there for 2 years, or longer, you're going to keep it for 1 additional year. Now you try doing that in a paper filing system, and it becomes a whole thing that you need to deal with. That's a thing unto itself, and none of that is profit generating. So it's a simple example, but it's one that definitely serves to illustrate that a lot of this record keeping stuff, it's very real, very, very important that you address it, but it's something that we can very much simplify. Oh, I see the 7 years coming in there. You're thinking tax audits. Actually, I believe tax audits for companies are 8 years. But no, it's going to be the 1 year post termination or 3 years minimum.
Yeah, if I could add to that too a little bit, it's another thing that people don't realize sometimes is that each line carries a penalty. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes. It's so hard to not get a fine on an I-9 form. It's very difficult. In some ways, we kind of prefer, if we know we did a pretty good job, we kind of prefer ICE coming in because they care less about the form and the way it's filled out than they do about the legitimacy of the documents. But if the DOL is auditing, then you can expect that they're going to check every line.
Yep. So this next slide, I think it's up right now on the record keeping, right? So we're moving along. I feel like we hear the music. You gotta get going. Yes. Okay. So this is just a screenshot or a snapshot of kind of what it would look like after it was completed. And you see how all the checkboxes are there. And one thing I just wanted to say on the I-9 side of it is the way that the onboarding our system works is it's done kind of digestible in sections. Like I'm putting in my name, and then pops up to the next thing. It's not like that paper where you're kind of going all over. The boxes are there, then it pre-populates the actual form. It's actually really slick and neat kind of how that works, because you don't even realize you're doing it, and then it just all goes in there. And by the way, anything the system's smart, so anything that gets entered in there carries over. So I'm never going to have to enter my name again twice or my address or whatever. It's just going to keep going to any documents that we have to have, and that's the smart part of it. But the checklist right here is whatever the documentation is, the I-9, right? The employee information, the handbook. Maybe there's an orientation video that we work with you on that you want to put up there that helps bring in, that's that whole first impression. Direct deposits, which now they're touching and not you, because Rebecca and I have seen this too many times where it's never going to be their mistake, right? When the money goes into the wrong account and you got to get it back, and they got to blame the HR director or the administration person that's there. And this kind of dummy proofs that, timestamps it, and they know that they're the ones that entered it. And then the tax as far as the forms all being correct, right? And then you get that complete checkbox, then to move forward. It gets put into the system and it gets housed there and stays there. Did I miss anything on that, Rebecca? I don't know how we are in time right now. I know we want to get 5 minutes for questions, right?
I think you're good. I think you're good. I think it's just knowing that you don't have to be a big business to have access to this, because we're a big business for you. So that's the beauty of it, is that you can have access to this with as few as one employee.
Yep. And it's all initiated, just so the folks understand it, it's a simple email. So once you have somebody's email, you know that they're hired, the email goes out to them and starts the entire process. And you're pinged at the points that you have to have that stuff, like putting in what the salary is, because you can't have them do that, obviously, because that wouldn't be good. All those different things, then come back to you, obviously, to verify the I-9 and whatnot. So it really takes a lot of work off the administration side of it, puts it back onto the employee, not hard work, stuff they should know, like their address and their name, right? And their banking information. So it's really a slick system. And if you are in a hiring and growth process and utilize our applicant tracking system, it does feed right into this system. I just wanted to add that. Okay. Can we go to the next slide? Okay. So I don't know how we're doing on time, so on the talk on this, but I think this is pretty much a busy slide because it's hard to read, but just look at the highlights, I guess. So we have saving time, right? That's the point to technology. Improving accuracy, okay, like we kind of just spoke about a little bit. Increased employee satisfaction. So I'm going to be a happier employee if I don't have to enter my name 8 times on 6 different forms that it's already there, and that I'm just entering in little kind of snap boxes rather than complete forms, which can be confusing, right? And then reduce the risk and the liability of entering my data and my forms, incorrectly. And I did want to point out too, we keep talking about the technology side and automation side. This is just a component of, what, as an example, we do for our clients. And it's one piece of the technology piece. And you heard me mention applicant tracking as an example of how we coordinate everything, right down to the onboarding side of it for employee benefits, because we really didn't get into that, Rebecca. I mean, the employee benefits side is a big part of this electronic onboarding, no?
It is. It is. So for those of you that are getting competitive in this very competitive labor market, and you're offering things like the voluntary dental, the voluntary vision, all those things that aren't necessarily a cost to you as a business, but that are a fantastic way to attract and retain those employees, it's all integrated as well. So you go in, you complete your I-9, that establishes that employee within the system, and that same information then feeds into the benefits piece. The benefits piece allows them to enroll in all those voluntary options, and then those deductions flow into your payroll, and then all the reconciliation happens automatically. So it continually, as the year progresses, it continues to create cost savings for you for the time you're not spending on it, and then it continues to feed in on itself, so that it's just a whole lot of administrative ease there.
Yeah, and I think you can even get into where it gets housed, right? I mean, so we're just talking about the very initial stage. So that information, we'll just stay on the employee benefits since we just kind of hit on that, gets housed into the employee file. So when they go in there, they can see their dental or vision or their employee benefits or whatever it is that they have, 401k. These are all things that we offer on our master plans, right? Yep. And it's on a chassis. So they go in there, they can see what their deductions are, what that costs, per paycheck. They can do a whole bunch of fun stuff with that, right, Rebecca?
Exactly. And as an employer, you can go in and you can look at all of those pre-tax deductions, because that's saving money for you on your side as well. That's pre-tax for you and your employment taxes as well. So yes, on both sides, everyone has access, and it genuinely is a value add to the employee, right? It's something that's going to improve not only their first impression, but their continued impression, because it just improves the legitimacy of the company. It makes sure that they feel that they are part of something bigger, that they have access to the same sorts of things they would have if they went and applied for a job somewhere else. It gives you that ability to compete in the job market.
Okay. So I think, I do want to make sure we have 5 minutes for any questions, right? We have 2 minutes here, but I did want to end on something, Rebecca. And if you can chime in as well. I mean, obviously, you've forgotten more than I've learned when it comes to this stuff, but I think it's important to kind of key on like managers, not needing to be on site to completing, the documentation.
Yeah.
Yeah. You literally can have someone who's doing and managing this whole entire process in one location, right? And the way that the storage industry works, I mean, you will have multiple locations, and in very, very many cases, you're going to have people, all throughout in different states. Mm-hmm. This is all electronic. So from an I-9 verification standpoint, you can do that whole I-9 process without having to sit next to somebody. And I just think in this space, that is just such a key thing to have, from being like more efficient, right? And then it's accurate on top of it.
Exactly.
But I'm sorry, yeah. Good.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I'm sure there are even international investors that are out there.
Yeah.
There is no limitation to your ability to manage your employees virtually at this point. And this is just one of the pieces that does that. And it does it not just for a point in time, not just for a video conference or something like that. It's not scanning. It's no equipment required. It's just you have access to the internet, then you can manage your employees.
Yeah, yep. And the very last thing I'll say on this topic before we go to questions is the employee handbook, which is a really important thing. When this documentation's up there and the employee goes through, they review the handbook or they don't. But either way, it is electronically time-stamped, signatured off that, and this is something that we actually write based on culture and also based on industry, for our clients, that gets time-stamped and checked off automatically. It's never going to be missed. It's always there. It's always in the system, and it's always there to protect you in case we ever have to reference it. So I did just want to point that out. So that's pretty much electric onboarding. We have 5 minutes for any Q&A, Jess. I think we dazzled everybody for being this late in here. I have about, and I think we're all ready for happy hour now. So let's get started. Okay.
Let's get started. I mean, is this water or what is this? No, I'm kidding. It's totally water, 100% water. Well, no, thank you guys for presenting, and to the audience members, if you have any human resources questions, we have 2 human resources experts here with us right now. Now is the time to ask while we still have about 4 minutes. Because listen, I talk to owners and operators every day. One a couple weeks ago said, I haven't hired anyone in 4 weeks. The applicants that were coming in were not good quality, or they were non-existent. I think with what's going on in the economy, and people are still sitting at home, unfortunately, on unemployment and not very overzealous to get back into the workforce, which is just crazy. And some of that may be for, health precautions. They're trying to make sure that they're safe with COVID still kind of lingering out there, unfortunately. So anything you can share with a newer owner operator, Keitht or Rebecca, that's coming into the space and getting started in this? Like, what's a good time for them to talk to an organization like yours that does the human resources outsourcing?